Welcome to Sounds Like Portraits. I'm Philippe Ongar. This is a podcast with creative humans. Don't forget to subscribe and thanks for giving your comments on soundslikeportraits.com. In these episodes, I'm talking with Frédéric Montagnon, CEO at LGO Group. When I sat with Frederic in his office on Madison, he told me about his passion for creative disruption. He's the Chairman of Arianee. It's an association whose mission is to build a global standard for the digital certification of valuable objects. Behind the technologies, there's a vision. Today, buying something is an act of communication because all of the data involved in the process. So, how to protect the privacy and the security of our transactions? For Frederic, technology is the answer. It's time to listen to him, but before, he told me what he tried to do all his life.
All my life, I always try to leverage the opportunity that offers a network to connect people all over the world for communication, for creation, for creativity in general.
When you say all your life, it means even when you were a young boy?
So I had the chance to discover the network really young. I was born and raised in France, obviously. And in France, we used to have something really special in the world, which was called Minitel. It was a private network built by the national operator. And this was probably one of the first network for really mainstream people, which gives the opportunity for everyone to connect with what was the origin of the internet in some way. So we used to have services, we used to use chat rooms, etc. And I was really young when I discovered this, when the Minitel appears in France. And when I discovered that I had the ability as a teenager to communicate with people all over France on a really niche topic, I realized that probably that will totally change the way we communicate, the way we co-organize, we co-create. That was actually my first passion in life. And this is what drove me to study computer science, to study mathematics in general. The first thing I wanted to learn in my life was how to build a computer, how that worked, the technology behind.
You're an entrepreneur and an investor. What drives you in investing in high-tech startups? What's the fun of it?
I'm an engineer, and I like to study the disruptive technology in general and to understand how that can modify the way we live, the way we behave, the way the company can produce their goods and services.
Is there a general process to transform an idea into a business for you?
Of course, there is a process. I think it's important to understand pain points on the one hand and to understand how a technology can solve those problems, those pain points. But at the end of the day, I think one of the key to success is to be able to test many things and not to be too attached to what you already built.
You were mentioning disruption. Why is creativity in the world of data a disrupting process?
Today, the internet is mostly some big platforms, and the idea that you can offer content and services still exists, but you have to go through a platform. So this is how those companies has shaped the world of information, which is good because that has created extraordinary, efficient, and complex platforms. We have to accept that Google and Facebook has bring a lot of value to everyone, companies, individuals. But the downside of that is that because they own the platform, because they decide the business model, because they decide the feature they are developing, of course, those companies, at the end of the day, are trying to protect their business model first and not the user. And as soon as you have enough people using your platform, you know that you have a big leverage on the markets. And at one point, you don't even need to have partners anymore. So this is exactly the situation that Google faced probably 10 years ago. This is the situation we have with Facebook. They own everything. They don't need any partners to continue to grow their business. And at that point, generally speaking, those platforms take decisions that are not aligned with the ambition and the needs of users, partners, and clients. This is where we are. So for me, there is a big challenge now, because what we see today on those platforms, on this market, is that there is no privacy anymore. There is no privacy because they decide what they want to open to third parties or not. And there is no privacy anymore because when you have thousands of people working on the same systems, the level of security you can have is very low. We see that on a daily basis. There are data breach every day. And even a Facebook, even a Google, even an Apple or an Amazon cannot guarantee the security of the system anymore.
Could regulations do the job?
I don't think that regulation can solve this problem. First, because the regulators are too slow to act. Second thing is that there is no worldwide regulation. You have regulation in the US, you have regulation in Europe, etc., but there is no global regulation. So that means that because those companies have probably one of the best brands in the world and they have the leverage that no one else have, they are global companies. So they can choose actually to relocate some of their activities in some place where the regulation is not that constrained than in the US, as an example. And at the end of the day, this is a cat and mouse game. And they will always win because they decide what they want to do, and the regulation has to understand what they are doing before they are able to react. For me, regulation has been good for a time, but now the only way to reshape and to solve those problems of privacy, security, the only way to solve that is to use technology to constrain those platforms to change. I started to study blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and all the cryptographic technologies probably 7 to 8 years ago, because we used to have to see a big disruption in that particular domain. All those technologies are built to try to solve privacy, to try to solve security by design. Generally speaking, when you build a database, so databases are everywhere. So a bank and an insurance, social network are database. So at the end of the day, this is a database somewhere with some algorithm, some application on top. And the problem with database is that as long as you are a company, you develop your own database, your own algorithms, you own and you develop your own infrastructure, someone in the company can change something. Someone can interact with the database, can modify something, and it's very hard, whether it's through processes, internal processes, or regulation. It's really hard to make it secure and to make sure that you're complying with certain rules.
Because it's too complicated to regulate, that's what you mean?
Yeah, it's too complicated to be regulated, and because somewhere you have an access, a direct access to this database, and you can do that by your own. All the cryptographic new technologies and everything that has been built over the past 10 years are built on top of an idea of decentralization. And the idea is mostly to decentralize the governance of an information system. So on the one hand, you have a Facebook who own the code of his application plus all his infrastructure. Because he has access to everything. So having just one big system in just one hand is enough to actually to modify and to do whatever you want. The idea of all this movement of cryptocurrency, blockchain, etc., is to say, okay, we cannot guarantee anything if someone has the ability to change alone something. But if we create the conditions for a system to be split into different parts, to be decentralized, and to make sure that people who are competitor in a field are owning a part of this same infrastructure, if someone is in this network, if ever it changes anything to this code or to the infrastructure, can be identified by the other as someone who have cheated with the system, then you probably have something that is more balanced, and you probably have something that can be, by design, secure and compliant. This is what, in this field of crypto things, what we are building now.
So you're the chairman of Arianee, and that's the kind of problem Arianee wants to fix. That's about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Arianee is very special. This is an experience at the end of the day. This is a kind of system that has never been built, and this is what really excites me. The idea with Arianee is to say we want to create a digital entity for every single valuable object. So generally speaking, when you buy a luxury good, you will probably have a certificate of authenticity, which is just a piece of paper with a serial number on it and a stamp somewhere. Of course, this piece of paper, you cannot authentify the origin of this certificate, which means that the value of this certificate is quite nothing. So that doesn't represent a lot. So which means that only the good is representing the value. What we want to do is to give to the brand the ability to create a digital certificate, which is a digital representation of this good, and to store this certificate into a decentralized platform. The idea behind is to guarantee that the certificate you have in your hands has been originated by someone you can identify.
When you say in your hands, if there's no paper, what is in my hand?
So in your hand is probably your phone. The future of your personal documents is a wallet into your phone. So the idea is to create certificates that can be stored in a wallet in your phone. If we do so, if we give the ability for a brand to generate certificates and for you to transfer this certificate to someone you want to offer your product or you want to sell your product to, that means that we have a duality between a real asset and a digital representation of this asset. During this transaction, you will have to transfer this certificate. First of all, you will have to demonstrate to the future owner that you are in possession of this certificate. Thanks to the cryptographic technology, you will have the opportunity to identify and to authentify that their certificate was issued by the brands. And that is something that cannot be modified or hacked anytime because those blockchain technology can guarantee that no one can intercept this information and change the information over time.
Talking about absolute security of all the process, we saw what we saw, and even for the biggest actors of the high tech.
The best demonstration is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was started a little bit more than 10 years ago. And so far, Bitcoin itself as a blockchain, as a technology, has never been hacked. And the reason is that if you want to hack those systems, you will want to be able to own a significant part of the network, more than 50% actually. And this is something that if you design the governance and the way those infrastructures are decentralized, this is something that you cannot obtain.
As a user, what does it change to my relationship to my assets, basically?
Two things. So first of all, if you have a digital certificate that is issued by a brand and stored in your wallets, this system is not in the hand of the brand, this system is not in the hand of the users, it's just something that is shared with all the people who are using the same system. And you don't have a centralized platform that just does everything for everyone. Today we can see the internet as some platforms, Google, Facebook, and they store information for everyone. And the failure happens at this level. So the general movement of crypto technologies today is to say we need to find a way for the users and for the clients and for everyone to get back their own data, to make sure that they own their data and that no one can interact with their data if they don't want. Because of this system, we'll give the ability for an owner and a brand to interact with each other, but with a total anonymity.
For the users?
Of course, you know the brand, but for the user. Because you will own in your phone, you will store in your phone a digital certificate, and that is enough actually to create a digital link between the brand and you. You will have the ability to send message to the brand will have the ability to send the message to you, but at no point you will be forced to give your address, to give your name, to give anything that you feel is personal. And that solves a lot of problems. The first is you don't want to give your address to everyone because you know that at some point that will be used to be resold. You will receive a lot of spam messages, and you don't know at the end of the day who is doing what with your information. And we all know that it's extremely dangerous, that some people build a database of information about you. If someone can have access to what you own, that says a lot of things about you. You don't want that. So this is an answer to this concern. The second thing is, at the end of the day, for a brand, it's also dangerous, actually, to store information. The regulation now is really strict about that. So you know that if ever you do a mistake with a database, you will have to pay big fines. We have GDPR now in Europe. This is something that totally scary all the industries, all the B2C industry, because you know that if you do something wrong with your data, and most of the time it's just mistakes, you will be fined by
will be responsible for that.
You are responsible. The second thing is just a problem of image. So when you learn that, I don't know, your favorite brands was hacked, and that the whole user database, the whole CRM has been revealed to hackers, and that somewhere on the internet you can access to this kind of information, you will probably lose a lot of trust to this brand. So it's a double risk for the brand. I think a brand is all about trust and image. So the brand don't want to risk that anymore.
What comes to mind is that when you buy something, it's an act of communication because we are in the world of data.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the value at the end of the day of what we are buying is, of course, what we express to the others when we own something and we show that we own something. It's also where this product was built, what kind of technology is used. Is this something that respects environments? There are a lot of criteria now that are used in marketing, but it's not only marketing, it's also your responsibility as a human being to act positively on your environment in general. Today, it's sometimes hard to make the difference between really good marketing and a reality. And I think that the brands needs today to show more and more what's really inside the company, and having this digital certificate and attaching some contents can help them to demonstrate that the way they work and the way they organize their work is what they market.
About Arianee, you're talking about precious assets. Let's talk about art. How could it work for art? Because a piece of art has no specific digital identification per se. So how could it work?
Good question. First of all, the reason why we focus on luxury today is because most of the really high luxury goods are already serialized. So you have a serial number attached to it. So that helps to create a relation between a real asset with a serial number and a digital certificate with the same serial number. When it comes to arts, that is something that we look at, of course. We didn't have the time to dig that much in that direction, but still we think there is a lot of potential in that field. You don't actually even have to have a real serial number attached to the arts. The sole fact that I own both the real and the digital assets, I think it's enough to guarantee to someone that I am the legit owner of this piece of art.
So the owner validates the certificate in a way.
Yes. If you push a little bit further, at one point the digital certificate should have the value on it more than the real assets. This is what happens with a mobile phone today. So a mobile phone like an iPhone, by design, is connected to the internet, and every single device connected to the internet has its own serial number into one chip that you cannot modify. If ever someone steals my phone, or if I lose it, I can just deactivate this phone from the network. As a consequence, if someone takes my phone, he will not be able to use it on the network anymore. So we'll probably sell a part of my phone, but not the whole phone, and he will not be able to use it. So that means that the value of my phone Without this digital representation is quite nothing. What we want to produce is a transfer of value from a real asset to a digital representation.
We were talking about disruption. Disruption comes with fears. How do you try to fix it among the community of users?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest problem when we try to disrupt. You don't want to be too early. You don't want to be too late, of course. But when you are really ahead of the market, it's a real risk actually to be too early, because you have to evangelize the market even before you go into discussion where someone could use your or imagine to use your technology. Most of the failure at the early days of the internet were not a lack of vision, were not a lack of ambition, but more
a lack of community.
A lack of community and the ability for a community to adopt your product. So when you talk about fears, the fears actually, it's all about marketing. It's all about communication. Everyone that is using a computer and the internet understood that there are a lot of problems relating to privacy, to security. They will definitely don't know how to fix it. But if we are good enough to convince the brands first to help us explain to users how we can fix it together, I think we have an opportunity to do it.
Is there a quote you want to share?
Yeah, the easy one quote I have is go big or go home. When you are trying to disrupt something and when you are trying to innovate, if you really want to have an impact, otherwise it doesn't worth the time you spend on it.
I'm gonna leave the room. Please hold the microphone and add whatever you want to the interview.
I really believe into human beings more than probably ever before, thanks to this co-creation and this ability to work all together. But now the problem is that we need to understand how to use those tools and how to benefit from it, and there is a long time to go.
Thank you, Frederic, for sharing your story. It was Sounds Like Portraits, a podcast by Philippe Montagnon. Music Charmeuse de Serpent, composed and conducted by Olivier Glisson. See you soon for the next episode.